Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience as we work our way through some technical foibles with the first virtual community consultation meeting that I think we've held here in the North District. Tonight's meeting is for 290 Sheppard Avenue West for a development approval application, and then it will be followed by a second meeting regarding some transportation issues in the general area of Sheppard and Addington. Just before we start, if you are having any difficulties hearing myself or any of the other presenters, please do not hesitate to try one of the options that are available. In looking at the presentation on screen, it appears that trying to change the audio settings is slightly different. If you're looking at the bottom of the screen on a computer, you will see a series of brown buttons. Starting from the right is an X, which is leave the event. Next to that, on the presentation we have logged in, is more options. The audio connection to tell the event to call you is there. Hopefully you can hear, and if not, try to connect through the audio by having the system call you back directly. Next up, if you are calling in and you do try that, the other option to try and get in and listen in an audio-only way is to dial this phone number, 416-915-6530. The system should prompt you for a meeting number. The meeting number is 133-640-9618. And finally, as a reminder, as you heard me say, this meeting is being recorded and will be posted online to the city's website for future viewing. When we get to the question and answer part of the meeting, it is a facilitated discussion. I will discuss later how you raise your hand to be unmuted by staff who are helping host the event so that you can ask questions. But just a reminder of some meeting rules. Please try to stay focused and refrain from multitasking. Be brief and try to limit yourself to one question or comment at a time. There will be other opportunities to engage, and depending on how we're doing with time, there may be opportunities for you to ask subsequent questions. Please be a good listener and keep an open mind to what is being presented to you by staff and by the applicant as well as the counselor tonight. As I said, there will be a way to raise your hand and ask questions, which I will explain when we get to that part of the evening. Please be respectful. The City of Toronto is an inclusive organization. Racist and other forms of discriminatory, prejudicial, or hateful comments and questions will not be tolerated, and we do have the ability to remove people from the meeting if they are asking inappropriate questions or making inappropriate comments. And please do try to engage with high energy. Be personable as you would be in person. I know this is a very different form of community meeting than we've all participated in before, and we're all learning as we go. So hopefully if we do encounter any technical problems, we will be able to work them out through the course of the meeting. In formally starting the meeting, I would like to ask us all to take a moment to reflect of the land acknowledgement for the City of Toronto. I'd like to begin by honoring the land that I'm on. Toronto, now known as Toronto, is under Treaty 13 and is home to many Indigenous nations from across Turtle Island, including the Inuit and the Métis. It is the traditional territories of the Huron-Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nations. We are all treaty people. Many of us have come here as settlers, immigrants, newcomers in this generation or generations past. I'd also like to acknowledge those who came here involuntarily, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. And so, I honor and pay tribute to the ancestors of African origin and descent. Tonight's agenda for our meeting will be an opening, which we've mostly gone through, and some comments from staff. The Councillor Fillion, has some comments that he would like to make. The Councillor's comments will be followed by a presentation by myself, then a presentation by the applicant, and a facilitated discussion on the application. I'd like to go through introductions. My name is Stephen Gardner. I'm a senior planner with the City of Toronto. I am the planner reviewing the application for 290 Sheppard Avenue West. There are a number of staff members with me tonight supporting who are also able to possibly answer questions depending on the nature of your questions. We have Arthur Lowe and David Cooperman from Transportation Planning and Christina Zhang from Transportation Services. Also with us, you will hear Mark D'Amiglio, who is assisting with the facilitated discussion portion of the evening, so you'll hear him if you want to ask questions later. We also have Councillor John Fillion, the local councillor for Ward 18 Willowdale. And joining us from the applicant
But I can't hear anything, Anna Maria.
Joining us from the applicant are Michael Testagusa and Braden Libalski from Biglieri Group, who are the planning consultants for the applicant. And I heard the councillor's voice, so I'm going to give him a second. Councillor Fillion, we heard you. I don't know if you can.
I'm on, but I'm having audio problems. I can't hear you, Stephen.
Could you hear? Okay, councillor, can you hear me any better now?
Hardly at all.
Hardly at all.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly well, councillor. So at this point, if you wanted to make any comments before we start
Sure.
the presentation,
So I'll just make a real introductory comment. So sorry, folks, as you may know, I have West Nile virus, and so I really can't hang in the meeting tonight too long. Just want to say that you know, we get all kinds of applications. We get the odd good one that follows the rules. We get the odd bad one. We actually get more than the odd bad one that follows the rules, some that don't. And then we get some ones that are just kind of stupid. And I would put this one into the stupid category. We do, however, have to process any applications that people put in. I don't know whether or not anything will come of this one. I suspect they will have some difficulty complying with all the rules and regulations, but we only know that by going through the process. So Marcus O'Brien Fair, my chief of staff, who most of you know, is on the call, as is Catherine LeBlanc Miller, who handles all my planning applications. So you're in very good hands with them, and I will check in with them tomorrow to find out how the meeting went. And Stephen Gardner, of course, is the planner. So you're in good hands all around.
Thank you very much, councillor. And I think on behalf of everybody, we hope you make a speedy recovery.
Thank you.
Thank you, councillor, for joining us. So at this point in the evening, I will begin my presentation. Just to help set the context, I think everybody probably knows where the site is. The property is on the north side of Sheppard Avenue West, just to the west of Addington Avenue, outlined in black here. The site is just over 500 square meters, 6,250 square feet. It has a frontage on Sheppard Avenue just over 15 meters, a 50-foot lot, and a depth of just over 38 meters or 125-foot deep lot. It's presently has a 1.5-story residential or former residential dwelling located on it. My presentation, I'm going to lay out sort of some of the planning policies and the background of how staff are reviewing the application and the details of it, starting with the City of Toronto official plan. The property is located in an area identified as being an avenue in the urban structure plan in the City of Toronto. Avenues are the gold areas you can see on the map that generally follow the major streets throughout the city. Avenues are part of the growth management strategy for the city, along with the centers, employment areas, and the downtown. I'm sorry, I'm being told I can't be heard well. 1 second. I will try to speak a little bit louder. My microphone on my computer is being difficult. So, sorry. Avenues are part of the growth management strategy for the city, along with the centers, the employment areas, and the downtown core. They are segments of main commercial streets which can accommodate housing and jobs, along with improving the public realm. Avenue studies are done for these to help guide future development for them, and this area has been subject to one which led to the adoption of OPA 367, which I will discuss shortly when I get that far into the official plan. The next part of the official plan that comes from the urban structure is the land use map. This site is designated mixed use areas in the official plan. These are the red areas that you can see in the map. They're areas that are intended to absorb part of Toronto's growth over time, create a balance of uses that reduce automobile dependency, variable scale that depends upon the context of where the site is located and how things are. And within mixed-use areas, new buildings will frame streets, minimize shadow impacts, and transition towards the lower scale areas while providing safe, attractive, and comfortable pedestrian environments. As I mentioned, the Avenue study led to the adoption of the Sheppard Lansing Secondary Plan, OPA 367. This was approved and is in full force and effect. The site here is within the area of the plan known as Mixed Use Areas B, which is subject to a density of 2.5 times the area of the lot. Or in other words, you can build a building that has a floor area equal to 2.5 times the area of the property it's located on. Mixed Use Areas B permit a range of uses in the secondary plan, including financial institutions, institutional uses, office, retail, and service commercial uses, residential uses in a townhouse or apartment form, as well as parks and open spaces. Within the secondary plan, one of the policies encourages the consolidation of lots along Sheppard Avenue to try and achieve frontages of 30 meters, because that does, in the opinion of staff, lead to better development sites that create more opportunities for well-organized developments. As well, the secondary plan contains a policy that buildings in mixed-use area B are permitted to have a maximum height of 6 stories, as well as requiring an angular plane transition at the rear of the lot to the residential communities beyond, where a 45-degree angular plane is measured from a height of 10.5 meters at the rear yard setback of 7.5 meters, and no building is permitted to go through that angular plane to ensure that there's a transition between the residential areas and anything within the mixed-use area. From the official plan is implemented through the zoning bylaws. The City of Toronto has 2 zoning bylaws at this time for properties in this area. The subject site is not part of the citywide zoning bylaw 569/2013, as you can see on this map. It's in the gray area. Part of the application is to bring this property into the citywide zoning bylaw and provide appropriate standards within it, as well as reflecting the more modern standards that that bylaw contains. The site is, however, subject to the former North York zoning bylaw 7625, which zones the site C6, which is a commercial zone that permits single-family dwellings that existed prior to 1991, business and professional offices, medical offices, financial institutions, places of worship, public libraries, museums, art galleries, and day nurseries. This zone contains performance standards that are quite a bit more restrictive than either the new zoning bylaw would or what the applicant is seeking, in terms that it would require an 18-meter front yard setback and only permits an 8-meter building height. Moving on to the reasons for the application. The primary reasons for the application are the building height, which, as I just mentioned, in the former North York bylaw only permits 8 meters. The proposed building is 19.9 meters plus a mechanical penthouse for a total of 21.25 meters. The former North York zoning bylaw would require 29 parking spaces for the proposed hotel use. The applicant is proposing 6 spaces. 6 spaces is generally within the range of what would be permitted by the parking standard that would likely be applied based on where the property is located in bylaw 569/2013, but this is something that's being reviewed by staff to ensure that it is appropriate in conjunction with the hotel use. And then finally, in the big bucket of reasons, the front yard setback would be 0 meters after a required road widening is taken along Sheppard Avenue to the proposed hotel building. The issues to be addressed are not necessarily limited to these, but broadly, the appropriateness of the proposed built form of the building, the height, density, and the setbacks, ensuring that the use is appropriate and does not impact upon the surrounding residential uses, and the adequacy of the proposed parking and loading facilities. And at this time, I would like to turn over to the applicants to allow them to provide details on their proposal in a more specific nature about what they've applied for.
Hi, Stephen. It's Michael Testaguzza. It seems Braden has been kicked out of the meeting. My name is Michael Testaguzza from the Bigley Area Group, and I will...
Braden just got back in, so Braden is there.
Oh, Braden, are you here?
Yes, I am. Are you able to hear me?
Yep, that's perfect.
Oh, perfect. For some reason, I was booted from the meeting, but I am back. It's working now. So I apologize, but I'm not sure at where we are at this time.
You can jump into your presentation now.
Perfect. Okay. The WebEx is not pulling up the slides for me currently.
Braden, if you want to go through your presentation, oh, there you go. Never mind.
Oh, is that up? Is that up now?
It is up now, yes.
Okay. Perfect. Yes, my name is Braden Lebowski. I'm here on behalf of the proponents for the proposed development here at 290 Sheppard Avenue West. Realtel Management Corporation, the proponent, intends to develop the subject site to construct a 6-story hotel building with 38 guest rooms, and has a resultant lot coverage of 51%, FSI of 2.42. And it has an average room size of 22 square meters and containing between 1 and 2 bedrooms per room. The rooms are planned to include washroom facilities, but will not contain any kitchen or cooking facilities. The building is proposed to be set back exactly 0 meters from Sheppard Avenue West property line, and will contain active uses at grade in the form of a lobby space with pedestrian access directly from Sheppard Avenue West. The building will be set back 0 meters from the eastern property line and 0.3 meters from the western property line. There will be a rear yard setback of 13.56 meters. Vehicular access is provided from Sheppard Avenue West via a 2-way lane located adjacent to the western property line. The lane runs under the secondary story of the building on the west side of the subject site, and will provide access to 6 parking spaces located within the rear yard of the building, while one of them will be an accessible parking space located underneath the rear portion of the building, underneath the second story. The development proposal included a landscape plan that provides deciduous trees, evergreen trees, and shrubs along the rear line of the property and in front of the building as well. That will frame the access from Sheppard Avenue West to the front of the building, and will provide screening at the rear yard property line as well. As you can see on the slideshow here, we have the south elevation, which is the front of the building, shown on the left-hand side. On the east elevation shows the side of the building on the right when you're looking at the building. And the next set of slides shows the north elevation reflecting the back or rear of the building where the parking spaces refuse are located. And then again, the west elevation being the left flankage of the building when looking at the street, looking at it from the street. The basement floor plan will contain the transformer, electrical room, mechanical room, laundry, office spaces, and storage for the operations of the building. The ground floor, shown in the right image, reflects the main lobby entry and provides access to and from the parking at the rear, as well as access to the front of the building fronting Sheppard Avenue West. Staircases and elevators are proposed throughout the building, accessible from the ground floor. The 2nd through 5th, as well as the 6th floor plans, shown as the left and middle drawings on the slideshow, provide and propose hotel rooms for the building. The roof floor plan on the right image reflects the proposed green roof and mechanical equipment area as well for the site. And then on to questions.
Thank you, Braden. Mark, if you could assign me back the presenting. All right. Thank you, Braden, for your presentation. Thank you, Braden, for your presentation. I'm going to get back to my slide deck. So we're now going to move on to the facilitated discussion, which is an opportunity for the attendees, the members of the public from the surrounding community, to ask questions. The way this works is there are buttons in the right-hand side on the screen for you to raise your hand if you're on a computer. If you look at the bottom of the list of participants, you'll see your name underneath all of the staff who are the panelists. And there's a button that looks like a hand. If you press that, I can see one person has already successfully raised their hand. Mark D'Amiglio, who is with me, is going to manage the question and answer to try and make sure we keep people in the order they raise their hands to ask their questions. As well, Victoria Fuchs is with us, and she's monitoring the text Q&A for anybody who would rather write their question into the text box. If you do not see the Q&A, again, at the bottom of your screen, there are a series of circles, and one of them looks like a question mark within a box. That should open up the Q&A panel for you to type in your questions. So with that in mind, Mark, do we have any audio questions?
We have Jessica Merrick with a question. Jessica Merrick, please direct your question to one of the panelists. Jessica Merrick, you are now unmuted.
Oh, thank you. Just, Stephen, what about the sidewalk? It doesn't look like there's going to be a sidewalk on the front of the building?
Thank you, Jessica, for your question. Yes, there will be a sidewalk in front of the building. The building itself that the applicant has proposed will be right at the property line, and then within the widened public realm, because they have to give the city a portion of their property along Sheppard to widen the street right-of-way for future improvements, there will be a new public sidewalk constructed by the applicant at their cost along the front of the building.
Is there a reason why we need an apartment building in the neighborhood?
Well, the applicant has not applied for an apartment building.
Oh, no, sorry, I meant hotel.
Sorry. I think that question is probably best directed to the applicant as to why their client feels that. That is one of the issues that staff is reviewing as part of our consideration of the application before we make a recommendation to council. Michael or Braden, would one of you like to speak to the question of why your client feels a hotel is necessary in this part of Sheppard Avenue West?
Hi, it's Michael Testaguzza here. Braden, are you still in the meeting right now, or? And sorry. Oh, Braden is messaging me and letting me know that his mic isn't working. So while he troubleshoots that, I'll certainly take a stab at the question. So Realty has done extensive kind of market research and found that obviously Toronto is lacking in hotel infrastructure. In fact, the city itself, I believe, has several papers and studies indicating the exact same thing. The city studies and information also in the official plan indicates that hotels are appropriate in mixed-use areas. And, of course, also this site is very close to rapid transit in the form of the subway. So when you mix and match those three items together, that's more or less the rationale for the hotel. The city's indicated that they need hotels. They've indicated that hotels are appropriate in mixed-use areas. This is a mixed-use area, and it's in proximity to transit. And then, of course, the market studies that indicate that this area would do well with a hotel.
Thank you, Braden. One thing I forgot, if you could, after your question has been answered, press the hand button again, just so your hand goes down. So that we know it's been answered. It just sort of clears up our list for us for management. Thank you very much for that. Mark, do we have a next question, please?
We have Kim Clark with a question. Kim Clark, please direct your question to one of the panelists. You are now unmuted.
Hi there. I'm not sure who's all on the panel, but my question is related to parking. I would think that a hotel with 38 rooms would require more than 6 parking spots, people with luggage, et cetera, regardless of proximity to transit. The ratio doesn't seem right. Can we please explain why there's only 6 spots?
Thank you very much for your question, Kim. I'm going to ask if Arthur or Christina from Transportation could address the parking ratio requirements for a hotel in the zoning bylaw.
Hi there, this is Arthur. I'd ask that Transportation Services answer this because it's related to parking zoning bylaw matters.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me? I'm just having a little technical difficulty with the microphone.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. The parking rate for the hotel use in this area is 0.2 spaces per unit. And in this case, the proposal has 38 units. So the minimum required is 7 spaces. And right now, I believe the proposed is 6 spaces. Did that answer the question?
Well, it does, but why, how long ago were those ratios developed as a planning tool? So it's fine that those are the rules, 0.2 spaces per room. I don't understand it as a hotel ratio, but were those done many years ago or are those recent? And can they be revisited?
It's Stephen Gardner again from Community Planning. I can answer that question. Those ratios were developed prior to the adoption of the citywide zoning bylaw in 2013. So those are the current and recent standards based on the most recent study that was done looking at parking rates approximately 10 years ago now when the zoning bylaw was being prepared.
Is it possible for that to be reviewed again, or would it be part of this?
It wouldn't be reviewed as part of this application. In this application, we would be applying those standards from the citywide zoning bylaw to the application through the review of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mark,
we have another question from Leslie and Joe Connolly. Leslie and Joe Connolly, please direct your question to one of the panelists. You are now unmuted.
Yes. Hello, everyone. We have a question about who exactly is the clientele. We hear that this market study was done. However, this is a very unusual place for a hotel to be placed. It's not near, I read your documentation that students are supposedly moving in there, but truly, we're not near any university. We're not near any college. Who is your clientele?
Thank you for your question. I would ask that the applicant's planners address that question. Thank you.
Hi, it's Michael Testaguza again from the Bigley Area Group, the planning consultant. Braden still doesn't appear to be getting through, so I'll field that question in terms of the clientele. So obviously, I'll start off with the qualifier that planning consultants aren't certainly in the business of planning for specific users. We plan for uses. So in a certain way, I'm not supposed to professionally opine over who specifically may use a building. That really does come down to people who do market research. Now, that being said, the units themselves are being designed in a specific manner. So they're being designed as very small individual pods. They're being designed as an industry term that is more of a real estate term than a planning term as a micro hotel. The idea is that this is supposed to be marketed towards both vacationers as well. It's not meant to be a long-term accommodation. So this wouldn't be something that you would have a student living in for a long period of time. It's not meant to be student housing. It is meant to be a hotel for the traveling public so to speak.
Is my mic still on?
Yes, it is, if you want.
Okay, so how do we keep prostitution away? These are very small rooms, minimal parking. I'm sure everyone has the same question. Is this similar to that other place that they tried to open up with the sex dolls down the street, or is it planning to be a prostitution flop house?
Stephen, I'm not sure if you want me to answer that question, or
Michael, I think I will take care of answering or trying to answer that question. So the questions that you're asking, in trying to control the use, part of the review is to ensure that the use that is being proposed is a permitted use, and prostitution is obviously not a permitted use and would not be something that would be a permitted use within the zoning bylaw. Should this application get approved, any zoning bylaws that get written would not permit that kind of use, and then it would come down to, as with everything, an enforcement issue where a use like that that's not permitted could be conducted in the existing building regardless of any new development or other development. Part of our job at the city as staff is to ensure that when things are being approved, they are being approved for permitted uses, and that's what can be carried out in that building. And if something illegal starts to happen, that becomes an enforcement issue. With that, Mark, do we have any at this point any written questions from the Q&A that haven't been addressed in response to the verbal questions?
Yes, we have Sean Belshaw. He asks, are hotel rooms being sold like condo units and then rented out via Airbnb, etc.? Who's going to run this hotel?
I think, again, I will ask the applicants to address the operational model of their client.
Certainly, so I can speak to that. And it's interesting. The Airbnb question is actually very perfect here, right? The city has issues with Airbnbs, and they have been going through various different means to appropriately control Airbnbs. And the alternative, and there's literature out there by the city that speaks to the need for hotels for that exact reason. They are to be managed professionally, and therefore, unlike an Airbnb, cause, generally speaking, less issues, or really the idea is to have no issues on the surrounding community through actually running a proper hotel business. Everything that's been done on this site, from what I can see, in terms of the way the building is being constructed and the way that it's supposed to operate, is that this will operate as a hotel, traditional hotel. So you won't have the typical concerns that come with an Airbnb. I'm not sure if that exactly answers the question because, of course, the operation of a hotel in many ways isn't something that comes into planning approvals. Generally speaking, if a hotel is permitted in an area, a hotel is permitted in an area, and it then has to abide by all of the noise bylaws that come with that, ensuring there's no light spillover into the neighborhood, ensuring that they're not creating parking issues in the neighborhood and they don't have people parking where they shouldn't be. So as Stephen mentioned, a lot of this does come down to enforcement, but certainly this is to operate as a traditional hotel and not as an Airbnb. In terms of who's going to run it, at this time I understand that Realty, who is the developer, will also be running.
Thank you, Michael. Mark, do we have any more written questions at this time?
Yes, we have Cal Curran. What about traffic flow onto Sheppard? It is already almost impossible to access Sheppard from Abington Avenue.
All right. I think that's a question that's probably best addressed by Christina from Transportation Services, who deal with reviewing this kind of turning movements and traffic access matters for the city. Christina, would you like to speak to your review to this point on the proposed access to this site?
Hi, I have reviewed the transportation impact study for this site submitted by their applicant. based on their study, there isn't going to be a very significant traffic impact in this area. The study is available on the city's website, if anyone's interested. I'm not too sure what the exact question is, if that answers the question.
I think that answers the question that at least you've looked at at this point, the traffic impact that's being proposed, and the applicant materials feel that it's not causing an issue. Mark, do we have any more written questions at this time?
Yes, we have Sean Belshaw again. Can we please be emailed a copy of market research, and is this research generally for Toronto or specific to this neighborhood?
Thank you, Mark. Sean, the best thing would probably be if you could send me an email about that. I will need to review what document Michael is referring to when he's made the comment about that. I'm not sure if it's one I've seen myself or not. So if you could send me a follow-up email on that question, I can look into that for you.
We have a hand-raised question from Madeline Kovacek. Madeline, you are now unmuted if you'd like to direct your question. Thank you.
Hi, I have two similarly related questions. One of them is, what class of a hotel is being planned? Is it a budget level or a luxury class hotel or something in between? And the second part of that question is, are there other hotels of similar shape and size and similar style that already exist that this client is looking to build this hotel to be similar to, I guess?
Thank you, Mladen. I will again direct that question to the applicant's planning consultants to answer.
Hey, it's Michael Testaguzza again. So there was a two-part question there in terms of this is a luxury or budget hotel. Quite honestly, I will say that I don't have the answer to that question. It's not typically, again, it's more of a question for potentially a real estate agent in comparison to an urban planner in terms of where the price point of units is in terms of marketing. So I do apologize, I don't have the answer to that question. With regards to similar hotels in the area, I do believe there are two other micro hotels in the general vicinity of North York, the North York Center, but on the outskirts. Memory serves. One is on Willowdale, northeast of City Center, and one is on, the name is escaping me now, I do apologize. We checked through my notes here. I do apologize to everyone for not having the other hotel name off the top of my head, or location anyways. Here's my technology is letting me down. Bear with me. I have the answer. It's loading. I do apologize.
Yeah, it's important to me just because, like, understanding how those communities are impacted today is probably going to be somewhat of a reflection of what might happen in this community as well.
No, certainly.
I'd like to understand how popular were they, what kind of clientele did they have? I mean, those are kinds of things that we can then see, right?
Mm-hmm. So, understanding that, and sorry, it's just loaded. Southeast of Empress and Doris, there is a second smaller boutique hotel. Again, that is north and east of the city center. So I don't have the operational names of those hotels, which might be what you're looking for now, but I can get that information over to Stephen in terms of what the names of those hotels are so that you can look them up, and I can get the addresses to you as well. But I can say that They are northeast of the city center, or sorry, North York Center, one being located at Doris, just south of Empress, and one further to the east.
Thank you, Michael. Madden, if you'd like to email, it's Stephen again, sorry. If you'd like to email me tomorrow or later in the week, I can try to get that information to you once Michael's been able to find it. But I think we'll move on to the next question. Mark, are there any hand raised or written questions at this time?
We have a written question from Sean Belshaw. Is the corner house going to be a part of this plan?
I can answer that at this point in time. Sean, no, the applicant has not included that corner house. Staff did note to the applicant, as I noted earlier in my presentation, that the Sheppard Lansing West Secondary Plan, OPA 367, does suggest that better developments are created when lots are approximately 30 meters wide, which would in this case mean consolidating either with the lot to the west or the lot to the east at the corner. The city, however, can only suggest that to applicants. We can't force people to buy other properties. And I'll give Michael or Brayden an opportunity if they want to speak here to whether or not their client has made any effort or considered the possibilities of expanding the site. However, at this point in time, the application before us is only this property, not the corner lot.
So it's Michael Testagutz again. My recollection is that the building to the west is fairly new, and then yes, the corner house is now part of the application. Not having discussed with my client whether he has attempted to purchase the home to the east directly, I can certainly make that inquiry and get back to you, Stephen, so that you can get back to the members of the public asking a question. But as you mentioned, you know, the city nor the applicant is ever in a position to force someone to sell their land. There's several properties on Sheppard that have 3-4-story buildings with similar frontage that are commercial in nature. This would be in no way, you know, an oddity in the neighborhood. 100 Sheppard, 220, 261, 292, 298, all have similar frontages, are commercial in nature, and operate fine. So we don't believe that it's a necessity to purchase the corner lot. And in fact, we've been told but that some people may not prefer an access off Addington for this proposal in the first place, which would be, I would suspect, one thing that staff would be looking for as part of acquiring that corner piece. So I can certainly get back to you and find out whether or not there's been advances to the corner parcel. But again, from our perspective, there's a lot of precedence on Sheppard of this exact type of development with this exact type of lot frontage.
Thank you very much, Michael. Mark, do we have any more written questions?
Yes, there's another question from Cal Carone. Will the hotel have 24-hour security?
Michael or Brayden, I guess ask you to speak for your client again, if you know.
Yeah, no, and Stephen, I don't want to sound like a broken record, and I certainly don't want to not provide the information that members of the public are seeking. I do understand where the concerns are coming from. Again, that's an operational thing. It's not very much in the realm of urban planning. I am happy to get that answer from our client in terms of how they intend to operate the hotel and whether there will or will not be 24-hour security. And I will send that back to you, Stephen, so that you can circulate it to the appropriate parties. Again, I do apologize for not having the specific answer to that. Operational questions just simply don't fall necessarily into a planning scope, but we will get those answers to you.
Thank you, Michael. That's fair. And maybe for the benefit of the public, the applicant is being fair. Some of those operational things are not controlled through the planning process we're discussing. Those are things that are handled by the owner of the property and the operator of the hotel. Largely what we're able to deal with is the shape of the building, the parking supply, whether the use is appropriate. So I don't want anybody to think that the applicant is being unduly avoiding the questions, and they are committing to try and provide answers where possible, that if anyone wants follow-up can get in touch with myself or through the counselor's office to try and answer those questions. Mark, do we have any further questions, audio or written at this time?
We have a written question from Calcaron. There will be a taxi drop-off. Where is that? How are you going to get to that?
Sure. Michael, that is an operational question. Michael, maybe you could answer that.
No, very much so. So the Sheppard plan does speak to the potential for lay-by spaces on Sheppard. That's not being explored for this, and frankly, I'm not sure exactly how that would work with the entire effort to reimagine the streetscape on Sheppard on a larger scale. I don't imagine it would work in the long term. For taxi pickup and drop off, because of the low level of traffic we expect for this site, we would expect that they would enter the building, enter the rear parking lot and drop off there, and then again exit in a forward manner off of Sheppard. So the intent would be that anybody who is coming in using either transit or really, the majority of the people entering would be using a car share service or transit or a taxi, and therefore would be getting dropped off in the rear parking lot and exiting forward onto Sheppard again. And the intent really isn't for most of those parking spaces to be used. So it meshes very well with the intention on the parking side. If that makes sense, I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Michael. I think it probably does. I just wanted to note at this point we have about 10 minutes left in this portion of the meeting before we switch to the second presentation on sort of broader issues in the area. So if anybody does have any questions that they would like to ask, now's the time. With respect to anything that is typed into the Q&A, that file is saved, and I do receive that after the meeting. So if there are questions that you have asked in the written Q&A that have not been answered, please do send me a follow-up email, and I will make sure that we try to provide you a timely answer to those questions, either from myself or from the applicant through me if it's a question that needs to be answered by them. So Mark, do we have any audio or written questions at this time to move through?
We have a written question from Kim Clark. Is this building subject to the same codes as a residential building? Example, 45-degree plane, etc.
Thank you for your question, Kim. Yes, this building is subject to the same rules as a residential building. So the 45-degree angular plane to the rear, which in this case is the north, does apply. The applicant's submission does comply with the angular plane requirements in the secondary plan based on a review at this time of their drawings. But those same basic rules in terms of angular plane and setbacks do apply.
We have a hand-raised question from Kim Clark. Kim, please direct your question. You are now unmuted.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, when would this, if it's approved, when would this building be planned to begin? And have we considered that there's another huge building just, a couple of lots away that's planned to be under construction sometime soon? How are we timing that?
I will let the applicant speak to their client's timing if they know, but part of the approval process through the city, through the site plan approval process, if the zoning is approved, is that engineering and right-of-way people look at a construction management plan to manage any road closures or construction activities to make sure they're done in the least impactful way possible. But with regards to timing, I would ask the applicant to speak if they know what their client is thinking.
Yep. Certainly. Firstly, echo your comments on traffic and construction management, certainly managed through the site plan process and quite successfully by the city, from my experience. But on the other hand, with regards to construction, my client, from every conversation I've had with him, has every intention to move forward with construction upon site plan approval. So the question really does go back to how long it may take to get through that process in relation to COVID-19 and the slowdowns that have occurred because of it, which are, of course, completely reasonable. And so we hope to be under construction as soon as site plan is approved and building permits are thereafter issued.
Thank you, Michael. Mark, do we have any written questions?
We have a written question from Rob Wilson. If the area has been zoned to permit an 8-story structure, did they apply for a 29-story hotel, or did I misread the information?
Thank you, Mark. Sorry, I didn't catch the name of who asked that question.
Rob Wilson.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you for your question, Rob. No, I believe you misread. So the existing permission is for an 8-meter height, not an 8-story building in the zoning bylaw. The applicant is seeking permission for a building which would be considered to be 19.9 meters or 6 stories in height, with a small area above that 19.9 meters for their mechanical penthouse for their elevator and air conditioning. I hope that
I'm Stephen.
Oh, sorry.
Can I just add on to that?
Certainly, Michael.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to clarify also on the other end. Certainly, that's the existing zoning, which, of course, others spoken to. The existing zoning from North York is quite outdated. But the city's new plan, which was just recently approved for this area, does call for 6 stories here. So the building is respecting the newest rules that the city has put out for this portion of Sheppard. I do want to stress that.
Thank you, Michael. Mark, at this time, as it's 7:55, I'd like to ask if we have one last either hand raised or text question that we can answer, and then there's a few closing remark slides and process things I'd like to speak to before we wrap up this part of the meeting.
There is a written question from Jennifer Quaid. Have you reviewed the traffic impact in conjunction with the other new building on the northeast corner of Sheppard?
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, that is, the applications are reviewed in the context of the other development approvals and applications within the area. Christina, I don't know if you have any comment from Transportation Services that you'd like to make in terms of your review of how this proposal fits in with other area applications.
Hi, I'm not too sure what the question is.
The question was, has this been reviewed in the context of the other development approvals in the area, such as the northeast corner, in terms of traffic impact and whether or not the traffic combines to create problems versus development on its own?
Yes, these traffic impact studies have included other developments that are happening in this area, and they have been accounting for this background growth in addition to their own trip generation.
Thank you, Christina. I'd like to thank everybody for their questions, both audio and in writing. We will, as I said, have a record of all the questions in the text Q&A that have not or may not have been answered that we can try to answer. If you follow up with me by email or phone, I can make sure I try to get those to you. So with that, I'm going to close the discussion portion of the evening. Thank you all for your questions. In terms of where we go from here, a few concluding points. So part of what is going on right now is determining the public interest in this application. And that requires bringing a number of different things together: the details of the development proposal, the planning policies, both at the provincial level and at the municipal level, the law, the zoning bylaw, past council decisions, past committee of adjustment decisions in the area, and then feedback from city departments, some of the staff that you've heard tonight and other staff, inputs from the applicant, inputs from yourself, the members of the public who have taken your time, which is greatly appreciated, to join us virtually tonight rather than in person to ask questions. And I encourage you to continue to ask questions either by email or by phone to me as this review continues. I can't give you a timeline at this point for when a report might go before Community Council. I'll speak to that in a second. In terms of the process, we are here at the orange box that points to the community consultation. This is still early in the process. The preliminary report went to Community Council. That's available on the city's website. It was considered in January or February. I've forgotten. The applicant has received a technical response to their circulation. They will be at this point working on addressing engineering comments, forestry comments, planning and urban design comments that are of a technical nature about the design of the building or the ability of services to handle it. They will at some point make a resubmission addressing those comments or attempting to address those comments. your opportunity to comment as the public continues. Whenever they make new submissions, those get posted to the city website at the same location where you were directed to on the notice for this meeting to find information about the application. If you've written in or participated, you will receive notice of the statutory public meeting under the Planning Act before the North York Community Council, at which time there will be a final report from City Planning making a recommendation to Council as to whether they should approve or refuse the application. That is another opportunity for you to speak, in that case, directly to Councillor Fillion and the other members of the North York Community Council as to any questions you have about the application and whether or not you think Community Council should or should not recommend that full City Council approve the application. Following that, City Council will make their decision on the application, and you will have, and I note that our slide is out of date, you will have an opportunity for an appeal to the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, which is no longer the OMB, although it's very much the same organization. And with that, I would like to thank you very much for attending this meeting tonight. We're going to carry on in a couple of minutes' time with the second meeting on transportation issues in the Addington and Sheppard Avenue West area related to the development approval on the northeast corner, which has been approved. I'm going to leave this slide up for a couple of minutes just while we switch around who's presenting and get organized. But I encourage you to send in your comments in writing, which may not be the most reliable way at the moment because of COVID and our mailroom, or via email or telephone. My email and telephone number are there on the slides. Once again, I would like to thank you all for your time for this portion of the meeting, and give us a couple of minutes to regroup, and we will be back with Victoria to start the second meeting.